I'm going to ask him to come up. A close family friend and a friend through some of their activities, both legal and otherwise. And we welcome him here today.
Thank you very much, Inka. Your Excellencies and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to take you back in a little bit of history to remember the 1970s, the years of prosperity and the golden era of Nigeria. One man that seemed to symbolize that picture for many professionals was Chief Chris Ogumbanjo. And my father, like most fathers who wish inspiration for their children, sometimes need to take them to an uncle or a friend so that they understand the potential of what could be achieved. So on a Saturday in April 1973, we carried the whole family. We went to Danfodio Road, which was more like a country home in Lagos. I walked in and I saw the warmth of a man, Chief Chris Ogumbanjo, of paternal nobility. Standing beside him was Auntie Hilda, a lady of maternal dignity and hospitality. And everybody else there was so tall. Senator, Sister Yemi, Mosun, everyone. And I looked in the corner, feeling a little bit out of balance. Then I saw a young boy who was more my height, with the potential, of course, to exceed me, but then he was still short. Twinkling with mischief, and he came and pulled my hands. Before I knew it, I was upstairs in his bedroom, going through Archie comics and Juggernauts, which is where he got one of his nicknames. Before I knew it, we were downstairs in the swimming pool. And as we left the pool, the old men were playing tennis who became ball boys. And I saw this energy and warmth, which became the bond between the two of us. And I think because of that energy and versatility, Chief Chris decided to chart a particular educational pattern for him. So he started first with the Gobi, where he acquired the ruggedness. And I'm sure many Gobians were here. He saw the ruggedness was a bit too strong, so I had to take him to Somerset to get some smoothness. It's where he met Moonshine, Dapojora, etc. And then he took a very unusual decision. He sent him to Switzerland to acquire European sophistication and suaveness, and of course, the ability to deal with the world. But inside that decision, because it was an American school, he also acquired American audacity. So you can see in those strains and strands the foundation of what made Bimbo Ogumbanjo a very versatile and a very open-minded individual. Now, armed with that quality, we all approached London in the 80s. Now, the 80s was like a scene from the Godfather movie. You had different families. You had the European family like Bimbo Ogumbanjo representing it. You had, from America, Feyi Bali representing the American family. You had Lanre Teju Osho coming into London and encroaching onto the territory there with the Lagos family. I was there as the London family, and of course you had Matamba, who wore the cap of Lagos and America. Sorry, of London and America, so we're not quite sure who he represented. Whilst we all had our diverse occupations in terms of our studies, we're all bonded by one pursuit, what I would describe as the pursuit of beauty. It was the battleground to win the hearts of the finest women in London. And everyone was very active. But Bimbo, you could not really see visibly where his endeavor was. All you heard was that a woman of beauty and height had had her heart infiltrated. And through the grapevine, you knew that Bimbo had been around. And I tried to analyze what was his psychology. And I figured it out. He was a man that was very partial with beauty, but he was very afraid of the perils of beauty, the risk of unrequited love. One of the greatest troubles you have at that age, failing your exam or having your heart pierced. So he was very risk averse, so he ensured that he moved very consciously. When we left London and we now came back to Lagos for the pursuit of matrimony, that philosophy abided. All of a sudden, he was spending an inordinate time in the house of the most genial and kind of Ogbeni Oja of Ijebuland. We thought it was because of his relationship with Femi. But rumors were abound that the younger, elegant, and charming daughter of the Ogbeni Oja had distracted him to the point of almost madness. He didn't know where he was going. And we didn't exactly know what was going on until, of course, the whole thing was pregnant with mystery, as you can imagine. But you know, the womb of time often reveals the truth. And before we knew it, announcements were made that the two noble families of Ijebu were going to be joined in matrimony. And this is where I come in. So I get a phone call from Bimbo. I want you to be my best man. Best man? I said, okay. Now the best man is an advocate for the groom. is also a witness. And whilst the drama of that marriage, which was very glorious and very nice, was going on, there was a subplot behind that drama. And that was a plot by Bimbo and Titi to set me up or to match me with the bridesmaid, who was the first cousin of the bride, the then dark beauty Tolu Oshidero, as she was then known. But of course, as an aging bachelor, I was conscious of my malady. I knew that the time was up. So unknown to them, I had made my overtures in advance. So whilst they were plotting, there was also a subplot by myself. And I'm reminded of the Shakespeare saying that the robbed who smiles has stolen something from the thief. And I had the last, and to my eternal gratitude, I'm very appreciative of that. Then the next phase, we come back to Nigeria. The business of living has to start. There's a wife and 2 beautiful children, the sweet Ladu and also Rotimi. And we sat down together. I pursued the path of being an advocate. He was a solicitor, but he was restless. And to understand Bimbo's trajectory, you have to understand his character. On one of those evenings when the old men were talking about their children, Chief Ogumbanjo said, and I'm sure Musu and Co probably will know this, he said, Abimbola, exam yembo, ayawamanja, buyoti kawe, but I pass. Exam me too, ayawatuja, I pass. So you underestimate Bimbo at your peril. He's a man who I describe as carrying muscles of intuition, and he had this faculty of connecting the chains of opportunity. He saw it very clearly, and he took his opportunities. And that is Abimbola Ogumbanjo for you. Biodun has described him in terms of his temperaments or his expressions. If you are talking to him, if he agrees with you, he would look wisely and say, If you are speaking profoundly and he agrees. When he disagrees, his eyes will roll. He'll still say the but his eyes are rolling. His head is tilting backwards. And then he will explode into an objection with drama and Yoruba proverbs. And then you know exactly the position in which he's taken. Now the trajectory from where he was as a lawyer to being a corporate board member, to being a chairman, a council member, and ultimately the president of the stock exchange was the effect of his prudence. He saw as an objective that the object of life was to have an object that was clearly attainable in space within a limited time. Maximum results and proportionate and relevant effort, not over effort. He targeted what he wanted to do and he achieved it. And when he arrived at that, you saw him at the very zenith of his professional career. It was a beautiful thing to see. You saw his whole 6-foot presence, which was a vessel that carried a lot of wisdom and a lot of learning. If you pointed him out, this was the president of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, you were proud. In his Savile suits that reflected his English education, his snow-white hair and his white beard that reminded you of a European aristocrat. The audacity, where he could go with good ideas, reminded you of his American education. And the ruggedness by which he could deal with anyone brought back the foundation of Igbobi. Now, at the height of that promise, there is what I call the treason of fate that accounts for the unaccountable twists and turns in a man's life. And we all woke up 2.5 weeks ago to the incarnation of a tragedy that we could not compose in fiction or in life, and traumatize a whole generation. Speaking for myself, I was reminded of the pastor of St. Paul's Cathedral. In fact, he was the dean then. St. John's, his name was John Donne. Of course, no accident that we're in Pastor Paul's Cathedral today. And he thundered and said, the death of every man diminishes me. And you know why? At a funeral service, because I'm involved in common humanity. And I said, this goes beyond John Donne. This creates a crisis of confidence in humanity and raises questions such as, what is the value of our lives? Is it transient in its relevance, or is it of everlasting value? Of course, it's a subject for Pastor Paul, where reference will be made, and in deference to him, I trust he will deal with it with appropriate reverence. So I shall not press the point too much, but I would say, from a secular point of view, that he achieved his purpose in life. And a man who achieves his purpose in life, you have to reconcile the answer on the side of a matter of everlasting value. And that is the essence. But more importantly, he was a very lucky man in 61 years of life to unify what I call the unity of the blessings of existence. You are born well to loving parents who had capacity and opportunity. You were in the bosom of beautiful siblings where there was no real sibling rivalry, they understood you. You found love in a life with your wife. You had the ability to parent children with so much tenderness. You had a variety of friends. You had a professional pinnacle that you were able to arrive at. You had sufficient financial security in a lifetime. You had good health, and you found your faith. What more does a man have? He got a first class. You might have wanted to have a double first. And as I'm trying to conclude, I'm feeling Bimbo is telling me, you were my advocate as my best man, and I want you to do a task here that would be indelible to the minds of my loved ones. And I'm trying to find out what is there to say. I've said it all. It says, yes, you have given a fair panorama of my life. I said, but Pastor Paul is going to finish that. He says, no, render a secular expression of a spiritual thought. And I'm trying to work out what he wants me to say. And if you know Bimbo, he is very insistent when he wants something. He doesn't keep quiet when his own matters are at hand. He's very involved. And he say it. And what I think he's trying to ask me to say, because as an advocate, I'm trying to go into his mind, is that I, who lived in the exuberance of human happiness, I am sitting in the felicity of heavenly blessings. And I'm not happy with this sense of doom and gloom that is pervading around me. So tell them. And I'm trying to wonder, what is the indelible? He says, go on and find an indelible, find something in poetry or in literature. And I remember the play by Andrew Lloyd Webber called Evita, Don't Cry for Me, Argentina. The lyrics of that song, which is the idea of Eva Perón, who was so loved and died prematurely, and the whole of Argentina was thrown into one mourning. And she said, I have never left you. I kept my promise in my lifetime. There shall be no distance, and I'll always love you. And I'm going to speak as if I was Bimbo, and I'll say he wants me to say to Titi that you enchanted me with your beauty and your style in your lifetime, but now I want you to bring out your resilience and your resources and your resourcefulness. It says to Ladun, who's been very demure as a young girl, very witty and very humorous, those careful whispers over time as a father is going to guide you, and you continue to be audible, and you continue to see it. Rotimi, you've proven today you have graduated. And like our great-grandfather, who was a priest, our grandfather, who was a lawyer, and me, there is a magnet of wisdom that is congenital that moves from generation to generation. When they asked the great philosopher Socrates, how come you are so wise that you know so much about Homer? He says, no, I'm just a transmitter from Homer. And therefore, my wisdom comes from someone else. And I will transmit it to people like Plato and to Aristotle and so on and so forth. So you are the transmitter of that generation of wisdom of your father's family. And you will head it well, and you will hear his voice where there's conflict or obscurity. And to my sisters, my beautiful sisters, who I'm the youngest. And I know I wasn't intended to go before you. And I know that the cords of familiarity may sometimes appear strained by my lack of physical absence, but the bond of affection and nostalgia will continue to abide. And you will continue. So going back to the song again, do not cry for me, my loved ones, because I've never left you, and you continue to listen. And then to the friends, the legion of friends. He had friends in the spiritual, like Pastor Paul. He had the professional friends. He had the school friends of Igbobi. He had a whole variety. He's saying to me that I was like a weaver who took the embroidery, the embroidery of the clothing the embroidery of the clothing of human variety, And I weaved it into a tapestry of human harmony with different friends who were not friends, but they connected because of me. I want you to continue to maintain your zest for life. The pain will be substituted. Pleasure and happiness will come. And as long as you have those feelings, it will continue to abide. And his final say, do not mourn me in search of lost time. Celebrate me in sweet remembrance of things past. May his soul rest in peace.